Welcome to the Carnivore Cast, a podcast focused on the carnivore diet and lifestyle, with practical advice from successful carnivores, citizen scientists, and top researchers. I'm your host, Scott Meslinski, and I'm here to speak with experts and experienced carnivores to get answers to your biggest and meatiest questions while helping you live your best life as a carnivore. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Yecca Aaron at Eat Meat Queen on Instagram is a certified carnivore coach, long-term carnivore, and expert keto and carnivore recipe maker. Yecca also makes badass Eat Meat apparel, which you can check out at teespring.com/stores/eatmeatshop. I'll link to that in the show notes. Welcome to the show, Yecca.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. Excited to have you on. And maybe it would be great for folks who aren't familiar with you and your story, just where did all this start for you with carnivore and even before that?
So basically, I have been overweight most of my life. I learned that I was first overweight I still remember was in 5th grade. I remember the nurse telling my mom that I, weighed more than the other girls. And, at the time I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, well, I love to eat, so that's just how it's going to be. But, as I got older, I realized that I didn't want to be overweight. And I kind of started dieting at a really young age. I was 14 years old. And I had gotten to 199 pounds. And I'd say I was about 15 years old. And I was like, okay, I really got to do something about this. And so I just started doing all sorts of crazy diets. There wasn't that much information out, available back then. So I just tried everything that I came across. I did the lemonade diet, did the cabbage soup diet. I, cut back my calories and all sorts of things, but nothing ever satisfied me and nothing ever worked, or it worked and then I gained all the weight back. And so I had first heard about carnivore a while ago from a couple of crazy friends, and they told me about it and I said, well, that's crazy. You need fruits and vegetables, but at the same time, I could still see that, carnivore would be beneficial for somebody with cancer, since cancer feeds off of sugar. But I was like, well, I don't have cancer, so I don't need to eat that way. And then I'd say fast forward a year, I was in a terrible relationship. I hated my job. I had gained back a lot of weight that I had lost through pretty much through stress and diet. And then I also had candida that was out of control that I couldn't, there was nothing I could take to get rid of it. I took so many natural supplements and creams and just nasty powders and all sorts of stuff. And nothing would really get rid of my candida. And so, I remembered my friends telling me about carnivore. And so I was like, well, let me look into this. And so I started doing some research, and it was really hard to find stuff, a couple years ago. Yeah. And but I came across Kelly Hogan. And then I came across this other girl's story that was really similar to mine. And so she was like, well, you've tried all this other stuff for 30 days. What's another 30 days? Or try this for 30 days, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to try it out. And so I stocked up on meat. I worked at the farmers markets. So, I was able to get some really good deals on locally sourced meat for my ranger friends and things like that. So I stocked up and I was really excited because I'm a fat girl on the inside and I love to eat. And so one of the tips I kept coming across was, if you're switching to carnivore, you have to eat until you're full. And, you're going to want to eat, as much as you're hungry, as much as your body tells you to eat. Otherwise, you're going to come up with problems. And so I was like, okay, I can definitely do that. I don't have a problem eating tons and tons of food. So I was really excited about that part. But at the same time, it was difficult because, I had my friends, but they didn't live close to me at the time. So I didn't really have anyone in real life to support me. My ex, he was really against it. And then, he would always like give me weird looks or give me crap for just, eating a plate full of meat, when in reality, I was actually eating way less than he was. I was eating, 2 or 3 times a day. And I was eating about I felt best closer to 2.5 pounds a day meat every day when I started. And so, but I was always cooking the food. And so I noticed that he was actually eating way more food than I was. And he was eating like 5 or 6 times a day. Like he was constantly hungry. And so even though he was like giving me crap, I saw the differences like in our lifestyle. And so that's just kind of like what helped me stay on track. And all the weight that I had gained was just starting to melt off within, I would say, a week of eating this way. And just, and I started feeling better. And I did go through a transition period where I, felt like crap and I was tired all the time and I was thirsty. But I've done tons of cleanses and detoxes. So I was really familiar with feeling like crap before you're going to feel better kind of thing. Yeah. And so, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to stick through this. I'm just going to keep doing the eat meat only thing. And I stuck with it. And it was just like one day I just woke up and it was like this switch was turned on and everything around me was amazing. And then I realized I don't have to stay in this relationship. I can leave, we don't have any kids or anything like that. And we had been together for almost 4 years. And that was one thing that I was like, well, we've been together for so long. Like, I don't need to break up. Like, we just got to figure it out. But we never figured it out. And I realized, I can just leave. And I also, hated my job too. So I was like, well, I'm just going to leave my job also. And I had been at that job for over 2 years with no raise or anything. So I was like, okay, I think it's time to end both things. It's time for some drastic life changes. And so it took me months to break up with him, but I finally did it. And, I didn't really plan my living situation that well. So I ended up having to live in my van for a little while, parked at my friend's house. But even though I was living in my van, I was so happy. I was just free and I was feeling so much better. And, I loved the food that I was eating. And I did fall off, a little bit after the breakup, but I think that's normal for anybody to go through a breakup, even if you're the one to break up with them. But, I was just so happy. It didn't matter in my life circumstances. I knew it was temporary. I've just stuck with it ever since. And, I've seen so many changes, since eating this way. And I'm forever grateful to my crazy friends that introduced me to this way of eating.
Yeah, that's amazing, Yecca. And I have to commend you on your resilience. That sounds very tough, especially having a partner that's not supportive. Someone who's questioning you and doesn't necessarily agree, but lets you do what you want is one thing. But someone who's overtly against what you're trying to do when you're trying to make this big lifestyle change, you're already doubting yourself. Society is doubting you. Maybe your parents are doubting you. That can be incredibly tough. So good for you for pushing through all of that. And with that, resolve, one thing I wanted to ask is you mentioned you'd done other cleanses and tried other diet fixes in the past, been dieting since your age 14. What gave you more conviction that carnivore would work? And I guess what along the way gave you more assurance that this was actually a long-term solution, something you could stick with and something that would produce lasting results?
Yeah. So, one of the first things I noticed after I went through the transition period was that I just started feeling better. And that was a really big thing because I had been depressed, I would say probably for years. I had lost my mom at a really young age. I had to take care of her in her last months of her life. I moved her here from Houston, and she had just a really, downhill battle for years with the doctors, always testing her. And diabetes does run in my family, and that was essentially the cause of her death. And so I had kind of been depressed since, a little bit before then and after that. And then it just kind of got worse with my relationship. It was just kind of like a one-sided thing. And so the fact that my depression just started disappearing out of nowhere was a really big thing for me. And then other things, I just started noticing little things. Like the longer I kept doing it, I just started noticing more benefits. I've usually always had pretty clear skin, but my skin started getting even more clear. Like I didn't even know it could. And my hair and nails started growing like crazy. I've always had short, brittle nails. Working in the food industry, you're not supposed to have long nails anyways. So I was okay with that, but I was never really able to grow them. They would always just chip and break. And, then they started growing like crazy to where I had to start cutting my nails twice a week in the beginning just because they were just growing so long. And then also my candida had resolved after a few months. So that was a really big thing also because I had been working on trying to take control of that for about 3 years, I would say. And there was nothing that could get rid of it, or it would get rid of it, but then it would come back. And so this, it got completely gone and nothing, like I haven't had a flare up or anything. Nothing has come back since then. And then I also started gaining muscle. I have never worked out. I had never liked working out. I never wanted to go to work out. And so that was another thing when I came across Carnivore and I'm reading all these people like, you don't have to work out. Like they encourage you to not work out in the beginning because healing is the first step. So I was like, this is awesome. Okay, I can do that, and so I started gaining muscle and I never did any heavy lifting. I worked the farmer's market once a week. So I would lift, heavy crates on that day, but that was it. And so I noticed I started getting muscle in my arms and legs. And I was like, this is really cool. Like I'm not even doing anything other than just eating differently. And, I just a bunch of little things like that here and there. They just like kept popping up gradually and I just kept feeling better every single day. And I was like, I'm not turning back, like, and I would try to, I tried to eat the stuff that I would crave sometimes. And then you just feel so terrible after eating, what you thought was a good, clean food. And so, it was just things like that helped me, jump back on track.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I can see how like your body's feedback is just the strongest piece of information you can deal with a lot of times. And it's great to see those incremental, they call them non-scale victories along the way too.
Yeah.
And when did you start, sharing your story publicly, your Instagram account, and what's your goal been there kind of?
So I had first started on Facebook. I was on a couple of Facebook groups with Charles Washington and others and other long-term carnivores. And so that's kind of where I learned a lot of the information. And like, I would just read other people's stories. I didn't really post that much in the beginning. I was just trying to, soak it all in and see everybody's different experiences and be like, okay, well, if this happens to me, then I do this, And then I had an Instagram for just like a personal page and I never really posted on there that much. And it wasn't until May of 2018 that I opened my Eat Meat Clean Instagram. And I started that because one of my friends started doing keto because of me and my boyfriend. And so he was like, I'm going to do keto. And then he started an Instagram page and he started posting, like cool meals like keto tacos and, things like that. And I was like, hey, like I make that stuff, but carnivore, like I should start an Instagram. And he just kind of inspired me to start posting food pics and my recipes and things like that. And so that was my initial reason of why I started it. Like I just wanted to share my carnivore creations with everybody. And, I knew I wanted a following, but I didn't really know what for. Everyone just wants followers and I didn't really have a reason for it other than, that's what everybody wants. And so I started sharing my recipes on there. And then, eventually started sharing about my story and people were just constantly asking me for a cookbook, like over and over and over again. And after so many times, I was like, well, I guess I should make a cookbook. All these people are asking me and I'm actually creating recipes. And that's when the idea came up. I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to start putting this together. And that's just kind of where it started. And yeah, and, it's also grown in just helping other people. That's one thing that I really love about the carnivore community is just like, as soon as you're a carnivore, you're all part of the same family, technically. That's just what I feel. And everybody is so supportive that eats this way. And it's crazy, to see that within a group. You don't really see that within a lot of other groups, and going to all the like KetoCon and other keto conventions and things like that. The energy, it's just awesome. And I love helping people. I've always loved helping people. And so, getting the feedback of people that I've helped, it really like lights my fire and it inspires me to help other people. I really love helping others and helping boost other people's confidence. And, like I was alone in the beginning, so it was really nice to have some people online to help encourage me and, seeing other people's successes, seeing other similar stories. It's just, it's just awesome.
Yeah, it's a fantastic community and great way to connect with people, support each other. And I always encourage people, if you have a story, share it. And I think you're doing a fantastic job of that. And recently you've become a coach as well, a certified carnivore coach. Can you talk about why you decided to do that and what the process was there?
Yeah, so I had volunteered my time for Meet RX. They were asking for volunteers. And so, I volunteered my time, and then just during that process, I had thought about, I was like, well, I kind of want to do some sort of coaching, but I don't know what, like nothing out there really enticed me. And so I just had that idea in my head for a little while. And so I'm doing this volunteer thing for Meet RX. I donate some of my recipes to the website. And then I let them know that I'm working on a cookbook too, just, maybe just throw that out there. And then I get a call like the next day from Sean's kind of like assistant, Masa. And so she gave me a call and she's like, I'm trying to, she mentioned the carnivore coaching to me, and it was just amazing. Like I knew my face was lit up because I was just like, oh my gosh, this is what I was waiting for. Like, I was looking for something and I didn't really know what it was. And then all of a sudden this carnivore coaching opportunity gets put in front of me. And so I was really, really excited. And I was like, yeah, I would love to do that. She's like, yeah, you'd be great. And I was like, okay. And so, I went through, I did all the volunteering, and then finally the coaching session part comes up, and it was fairly easy, being a carnivore for this long already. I already knew a lot of the stuff. So that was awesome. I did learn a few things though, so that was really cool. And it's basically just kind of like a little online thing. You go through, you study these notes and videos, and and then you have a questionnaire at the end, and you do a mock video interview. Since it is like a video coaching that you do with people, so you send in a mock video, and I became the first female carnivore coach.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, it sounds like a great system and a great way to help people. And Yecca, maybe because folks always love to hear, it would be great to hear about your version of carnivore. What does a day of eating look like for you? And I can follow up with some questions about some of the specifics.
Yeah, so lately a day of eating for me has been, it varies a lot, mostly because I'm working on the cookbook. So a lot of the stuff in the cookbook isn't really stuff that I would make on an everyday basis. But since I am having to make it every day, mostly every day, I eat, things that I wouldn't normally eat on a daily basis. But what I typically do love to eat are burgers. I can eat burgers basically every day. And then I'm really frugal. I've always been really frugal. So another cut that I've noticed is really cheap is chuck steak. And I always do grass fed because that's been my belief for about 6 or 7 years now. I've always been, before I even ate this way, I've always been supportive of, local agriculture, grass fed, sustainably sourced meat, because I know it is better for the earth. And so that's just been for me, that's just been really important. So Trying to eat grass-fed can get pricey. So I usually try to stick to cheaper cuts. If I could afford to eat ribeye, grass-fed ribeye every day, I might do that. But, $20 a pound for ribeye is a little bit too much for me right now.
You've got a lot of good grass-fed cows down there in Texas too.
Yeah, we do. So I'm waiting in January. I'm putting together a little cow share for locals. So we don't have to, I don't have to get a whole half cow myself. So that really helps too, just buying from local ranchers. And then, after you've bought from them a couple times, they always hook you up because if they know you love meat, they are going to hook you up with extra meat because there's usually extra bones or fat, the stuff that people don't normally buy that often. It's really nice having a local rancher to get your meat from. But I'm mostly just, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just mostly eat burgers and chuck steak, and I do chicken here and there. I always have bone broth in the house. And then I do eat dairy and spices. I'm not sensitive to any spices. So, and especially like with my cookbook, I really try to recreate a lot of meals that people think that they can't have on carnivore. So sometimes the spices is what makes it that meal. And so my recipes are more for people that aren't that sensitive to spices or dairy. And so I do eat some dairy. I definitely try to limit it though, because I cut it out for 30 days and I did feel better. But sometimes dairy is the only thing that'll keep me carnivore. So, I'd rather go eat dairy than, eat something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what helped me stay carnivore in the beginning too. When I first started carnivore, anytime I had a craving, I would drink heavy whipping cream, low temp pasteurized heavy whipping cream. I was buying it by the 6-pack and I would always have it in the fridge. But that did taper down after the first month. My cravings finally were gone, and I could just eat meat. And, I didn't care. I was like, this is carnivore. Like, I'm going to drink it. I don't care. I don't want to fall off. So that's why I stuck with that. And, I'm glad I did.
Yeah. I often say, especially when you're getting started, do what keeps you on track. It's better to have some spices, maybe some sausage or some type of processed meat, hopefully low in carbs and sugar, if that helps you stay carnivore. And one question I wanted to ask you, not necessarily for you personally, but people you help and just in general, what are your thoughts on this concept of like, if you don't eat 100% animal products, you're not carnivore? I always say the biological term carnivore actually means if you eat any meat at all, you're a carnivore. But people I find can get dogmatic about, 100% carnivore versus 90 to 95%. My personal opinion is it's contextual and it depends on the individual. And again, if having, some dark chocolate, some avocados, a small amount of plants, whatever is going to keep you 90 to 95% on track, that's fantastic. But, for people with autoimmune conditions, they may need to be more strict. What's kind of your opinion on that dichotomy there?
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's one thing that I've learned during this journey is that everybody is different, and just salt and water might actually not work for everybody. So that it might not, and it does suck to say that because we all just want everybody to just eat meat, but in reality, people have other issues that can't be resolved by eating ribeye every day. I actually had this lady reach out to me and telling me that she basically just eats ribeye, salt, and water, and she's been doing it for 8 months now, and she still has some issues. And I actually couldn't help her. I gave her lots of suggestions, and she was like, I already tried that. I do that. I've done that. And so it's crazy. We aren't all the same. And honestly, especially if you're just starting out, you're just switching, I really think 95% is way better than what they were doing before. And so, I would be totally okay with somebody starting out with a high percentage of meat, 90%, because then eventually, or hopefully eventually, they start to realize, well, I still have this little issue, or I still have this little pain in my elbow, or let me just cut these couple things out since I'm already eating mostly meat. It might make the transition to 100% easier for them in the long run. Because I feel like that's kind of the thing with a lot of keto people. They, even if they are meat heavy, they usually find out, well, I still have this issue, so let me switch to carnivore. Everyone else is doing it, so let me jump on this train. And then they find out that those last 3 ingredients that they were eating is what was causing, those issues. And I've noticed that trend a lot in the last year. So I'm all for helping people to eat more meat. Like, I don't really care. Like, that's my main thing is, because I've had trouble like trying to get my family and close friends to switch to all meat. So, you kind of got to take baby steps, so I just try to, encourage them to just eat more meat, at least half of your plate be meat, or if more, that's even better, and so I think that's just because we're in a stage right now of like vegans against carnivores. And then, there's these people in the middle, they don't really know what to do, or, they don't really want to jump to one extreme. And so, we kind of just have to encourage people to eat more meat because it is healthy. And, whether that person does change their diet to carnivore or not, the fact that they eat more meat, I think is going to be really beneficial to them.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think everyone can benefit from including more protein, animal protein, especially beef in their diet. And you say, some people carnivore doesn't work for, and you mentioned one woman in particular. What types of problems did she have? I've seen people personally who long-term carnivore doesn't work sometimes it's a compliance thing, like we talked about, like they just can't do just carnivore. They need to have other stuff to be satisfied. It's kind of a mental aspect. And adherence is always kind of like the bottom of the pyramid. But what other issues have you seen people for whom carnivore doesn't work so well?
Well, honestly, that was really the only person that I've come across where it hasn't worked for. But I have seen a lot of carnivores struggle because one big issue I've noticed with carnivores is that a lot of people, women especially, are scared to eat a lot in the beginning. And so, I've noticed a lot of issues with people, like being fatigued or just not feeling good or not losing any weight or even gaining weight. And all that is from not eating enough. That's one thing that I ask basically all my clients that have already started carnivore. I'm like, how much are you eating? Yeah. Because I learned that most people don't realize, even though it says all over the internet, 2 pounds is the average for most carnivores, they still, struggle eating that much, or they can't eat that much in one sitting. So, I try to help them, be like, well, maybe you can add an extra small meal, in the day, or maybe you can just make your meals just a tiny bit larger to help you eat enough. And so I really haven't found too many people where carnivore actually didn't work for. It was just that one person that I recently came across. She was asking me for advice, and I really have no idea what it could be. I have no idea what it could be, but, I have seen some issues with people like that from not eating enough, or they'll fall off, they'll be like, they'll eat carnivore for a few days and then fall off for one day, and then eat carnivore for a few days and then eat whatever for another day. And so that really is, it makes it even harder, I think, to transition to carnivore that way. Because then your issues will come back, and then it takes those few days to recover by eating meat, and it's just like this cycle. And one thing I do want to say, one thing that I would do differently when I first started carnivore, I didn't really know that much about electrolyte imbalances. And I feel like if I had taken some salt or some electrolytes during my transition phase, it wouldn't have been as bad.
Yeah. And how do you manage electrolytes now?
So now I just take salt. I take salt about twice a day. I take about a teaspoon. I just put it in my palm and take it like a pill. And that's pretty much it.
And is that in addition to salting your food?
Yeah, I love my food really salty. And I noticed that too in the beginning. I was like putting tons of salt on my food. So now it makes sense. Like, okay, well, my body was craving salt, so that's why I put a bunch, but it still wasn't enough, So I think even if you like your food really salty, especially in the beginning, I think it's really important to add extra electrolytes, just because your body physically can't hold on to the electrolytes whenever you're on any kind of low carb diet.
Yeah, agreed. And getting back to the quantities, Yecca, you mentioned starting out, you're eating 2.5 pounds. How much do you eat today? And usually like, how many meals do you have? What are the timing of those meals?
Yeah, so I eat now about 2 pounds per
Okay.
day. And I usually eat about 2 times a day, but sometimes it's three. I really listen to my body. I never really have a set schedule, and I had started doing fasting, but then I noticed that I was just kind of getting a little crazy with it because I still have some stomach fat that I'm trying to lose. And so I was like, getting into just fasting a lot. It was around that time when the Real Salt did their first 3-day community fast.
Right.
And so I did that. That was my first 3-day fast. And then I was doing like 24-hour fast constantly. But then I started feeling fatigued and not feeling good. And I did lose a lot of weight. But I just wasn't feeling that good. And so I kind of stopped forcing fasts since then. And so now I actually really don't know what my eating window is like, because some days I'll be hungry first thing in the morning, and some days I'm not hungry until the evening. And sometimes I don't have dinner until 8 o'clock. I just kind of really listen to my body, or I go with my schedule. If I'm working that day, I'll fast, or I won't eat until afterwards.
Yeah.
So it really varies day to day, but I would say I usually eat about twice a day. And it's usually, I'm not always hungry in the morning, but some days I am.
Yep. Yep. Makes a ton of sense. Sounds very intuitive. And another question I was going to ask is, you say burgers are a big part of your diet, and they've always been a big part of my carnivore diet as well. But I do have some concerns less so around steak, but more around ground meat, making sure it's cooked well enough so you don't have any risk of food poisoning. Is that a concern for you at all? Or how do you cook your ground beef? How do you cook your burgers?
So it's weird. I like my burgers cooked all the way too. That's just my preference, or medium well, to where they're still a little pink on the inside.
Yeah.
But I can't eat them raw. Like I could eat it raw. I'm not worried about that if I get it, if it's locally sourced, I'm absolutely not worried about it.
If it's just like one cow or one farmer.
Right. Yeah. And I know there hasn't been any other meat in the grinder or anything like that. But yeah, I can't eat the burger if it's seared and it's still rare on the inside. To me, that's just a weird texture. And I don't like it that way, but I like them well done. But as far as steak goes, I love eating raw steak. I've been craving that a lot lately, actually. And so I don't really worry about the steak. But yeah, with the burger, if I don't really know where it came from, like I wouldn't buy a packaged grass-fed beef, a ground beef, and eat that raw. I definitely wouldn't do that. I would only eat it if I knew who actually, who I got it from.
Yeah, I like that philosophy. That's smart. And how about organs? Do you include any organs in your diet? You mentioned the bone broth, but anything else?
Yeah, I love organ meats. Beef liver, I like beef liver if it's like slightly seared. Same with like chicken livers.
Same.
I can't eat the raw beef liver though. I've tried it like 4 times and it was just I gagged every time. And it was funny because I tried to record it, for Instagram, but every time I just like gagged and I was like, nope, I can't do this. And I like it still. I still like it bloody on the inside, but it has to be seared. It has to have that little bit of brown on the outside because it changes the texture just a little bit. And I got some sweetbreads last time for my rancher friend, and I love organ meats. Growing up, I've always been the girl that loves all the weird foods, like, I'll eat bugs or whatever, I'll eat the tripe soup and things like that. My mom, she actually made tripe soup a lot growing up. So, I always had that, and I've just always loved eating weird stuff. I watched that guy on the Discovery Channel, I think, and he like posts about weird stuff. Like, and I was just always interested in that, even in culinary school. In culinary school, we had an organ meat section, and I was so mad because I was the only one that wanted to do that part. I was like, this is like my favorite part of the whole class. Like, I wanted to do this. And so like everybody else in my class was grossed out. And so my chef was like, okay, well, I'll order a tongue for you. And so that was like the only thing I got to cook for organs in culinary school. And, but it was fun, you know, and I got to freak everybody out with a tongue, like put it in their face and stuff. And everyone was scared, but I've always loved eating weird stuff and trying new things. And so organs to me are just, it's like a delicacy.
Yeah. That's great. And how about, you meant, it sounds like you're very intuitive with your approach, but do you count calories at all? Do you worry about fat to protein ratios, making sure you're getting enough fat, not too much protein? How do you approach that?
Yeah, so I don't track anything. Yeah, I just listen to my body. If I'm craving chicken one day, I'm gonna eat chicken. Or if I'm craving a fatty steak or just a bowl of burgers, I literally just, like, my body just tells me what to eat that day. And that was another thing that I really loved about carnivore, is that they encourage you, no, you don't track anything. Like, just make sure you eat until you're full. And, you know, I've never done any diet with tracking or anything like that. I've always wanted, you know, the easy way out to where I could still eat and eat things that I liked. And so, you know, that was something that just really drew me to this way of eating. I've actually never eaten keto. I jumped straight to carnivore. I didn't even know what keto was really, when I first started carnivore. And then I started seeing all these keto carnivore people pop up and I was like, what's keto?
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely don't track anything.
And how about, supplements? Do you use any supplements? Do you think about things like calcium?
Yeah, so since I eat dairy and bone broth, I don't really worry too much about the calcium. I feel like with carnivore, if you eat, you know, most parts of the animal, that you really can get everything you need. And supplements, the only supplement I really take is nascent iodine. And I've been taking that for about 6 or 7 years now. And it's unlike any other iodine. If you do take iodine, I recommend trying out nascent iodine. It's from a deep earth crystal source, so it's not from seaweed or anything like that. So it's like really strong, and it's just kind of helped me feel good, you know, and helped me naturally detox. And it also, I noticed when I stopped taking it, I don't dream as much. And then when I remember to start taking it again, my dreams become really vivid again. But yeah, I love taking that stuff. You know, it decalcifies your pineal gland. And it's just been a really big game changer for me. I noticed that also when I first started taking it before I was carnivore, it helped a lot with my periods and just my overall mood and energy. So that's basically the only thing I take other than salt. Sometimes I'll take magnesium, but I feel like I don't really need it every day anymore.
Right. Yeah. I like the minimalist approach there. And how about, Yecca, you know, you've been doing carnivore for 2.5 years now. Can you talk about any experiments you've run? You've talked about a lot of the things you've learned as we've kind of gone through this, but you know, how has it evolved for you? What have you learned? And you know, what has changed for you about your carnivore diet?
Yeah. So, when everyone was doing those carb ups, you know, I was like, I'm going to see if I can do this. You know, I saw all these people have success with it. And I remember one of the things I tried it with was butternut squash. And the next day I felt like crap. Like, I was so emotional and it was crazy. I didn't realize that, you know, a butternut squash could make me feel that way. And, I tried that and it didn't work for me. Yeah, that's basically the only thing, because just, it's been working for me, eating tons of meat, eating what I like. And so, you know, that just works for me. I did try cutting out dairy for a little while, and I noticed that I was kind of eating a lot of dairy and it was causing me some bloat. And so now I still eat dairy, but I do try to limit it. And that's basically it. I haven't really tried to experiment too much with things, just because, like I said, I've been feeling good doing what I've been doing. And so, you know, ever since I tried the Carb Up experiment, I haven't really felt the need to try another experiment.
Yeah. Yeah. You learned your lesson.
Yeah.
And
Don't pick.
we've danced around it a little bit, but tell us about your cookbook. Tell us about the Carnivore Holidays Classic book. I got a chance to look at it. Super creative and delicious looking recipes. The Snow Cheeseball, spicy chicken muffins, Carnivore Marshmallows. What inspired this, and talk a little bit about it.
Thanks. Yeah. So, well, yeah, like I said, they've been asking me constantly for a cookbook, and I made a really awesome connection at one of my meetups that I put together, my friend Charlie Brown, and he offered to help me put a book together. And so I was like, okay, well, let's get this thing going then. And so, I tried working really hard, and I was going to do a full book, but he mentioned something about like it being under 100 pages, and there was just some issues. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? I want to put something out for the holidays. There's no way I'd be able to finish a full book by then anyway. So let's just make a little holiday book with just a few recipes, for people to have over the holidays. And so I just put together some of my, I wouldn't say best, but I guess best for the holidays recipes. And, I just wanted to have some things that people could have around the holidays, with their family, because, everyone's family isn't carnivore. And so I know there's going to be desserts and stuffing and things like that on the table. And so having these recipes there, would really help some, especially, new people that are just starting out carnivore. They really don't want to feel left out. They still want to have dessert with their family, or they still want to have something bread-like, with their family. And, they don't want people questioning their diet around their holidays. So, that's kind of why I created this. And yeah, I just tried to put some really unique recipes in there. The stuffing is really good. It's all really good. The cheese ball, I just kind of thought of that. I was like, what if I made like a layered cheese ball?
Yeah.
I used to kind of make something like that, but it wasn't as layered. I used to make one with it would be tuna on the inside, and then cream cheese, and then like a jelly on the outside. And so that is kind of what inspired me to make that layered one. And so I was like, yeah, I could totally do that. And it came out really cool. And the marshmallows, those are really awesome. They taste just like marshmallows, even without like any stevia or anything. With the vanilla and the cream in there, they're like so sweet. And like, I was just amazed when I came out with that recipe because it was just really good. But I am working on a full printed cookbook. Hopefully I'm shooting to have it out by KetoCon or a little bit before then. But yeah, and so that one will just be kind of like a book of just a bunch of basic recipes. Some of my other favorite recipes are the chicken buns, the egg noodles, and the cheesecake.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent alternative for folks too who want to have options during the holiday season, want to relive some of their favorite recipes in a way and not feel completely restricted, especially when starting out on a carnivore diet.
Yeah, that was another thing too. There's a lot of people that are worried about starting carnivore diets. They're like, oh, well, I can't have this, or I can't have bread, or I can't have noodles, or I can't have cake. But, with my cookbooks, now you can, now you can actually, like, that's not an excuse anymore. You can actually make basically any food that you're going to miss. And so, I just want to kind of have that for people that are transitioning to carnivore. That way they're not so scared about just jumping in like, oh, it's going to be so boring. I have to eat burgers every day. No.
Yeah, it's super awesome. And Yecca, what else are you working towards with your content? Talk a little bit about that and where people can find you or what's on the horizon for you.
Yeah, so I am planning on getting a few more cool shirts and apparel ideas out on my shop. I just put one up there, and I have another one that I'm going to do. And yeah, I just kind of really want to promote those for January, for World Carnivore Month. We really want to get a bunch of people doing carnivore this January. I think it's the 3rd year that Sean Baker's been doing that. And so we're trying to get a lot of people to sign up on meetrx.com. They're also offering, so they have a membership where it's normally $10 a month, or you have access to online daily Zoom calls And Sean Baker does them every single day. There's 3 of them, and he does one of those 3 every single day. And so with that, you can get on there and just ask any questions to anybody, or, make a statement or whatever. And then there's an online forum. And then there also is some discounts that are for people who are members only. And there's also a list of doctors that approve of the carnivore diet. And so for the month of January, they're offering a 1-month free membership for anybody that wants to sign up. And then you can cancel anytime, or if you want to stay on there, it's only $10 a month. And so that's going to help just kind of promote the movement and help promote the coaches. We're working on getting a commercial out for the coaches. And another big thing, other than my book, that I'm planning for this year is a epic meetup for KetoCon. Last year, I put together the meetup at Fogo de Chao, and it was awesome. There were so many people there, and I didn't even think that many people were good. I knew there was going to be at least 50, but it ended up being around 65 people, I think. And, more people wanted to come too, but we had a stipulation with getting the room booked. And so, it's kind of limited. So this year, I really want to plan something special. I work for a local catering company that uses locally sourced ingredients. And so I'm thinking about having them cook up maybe 2 or 3 different meats for us, and renting out a space so we can have an even bigger group than last year. I'm hoping to have around 100 people show up for the dinner. It was really awesome last year. Everybody was there. Sean Baker, Dr. Ken Berry, I sat across from Paul Saladino and Dr. Fit and Fab, and Danny Vega and Mauro were right behind me. And it was just awesome, and then seeing all my friends that I had never met before, but I knew them pretty well from online, and I had the Strong Sisters next to me, and there was just so many awesome people there, and it was so cool. And that was actually my first meetup. I had never been to a meetup, but when I first started Carnivore, I saw these people doing all these meetups. I was like, oh, I want to go, and I was just never able to make it. And I had so the KetoCon was around, and I mentioned to someone, I was like, hey, let's meet up. Let's have a meetup. And he was like, okay, we'll put it together. I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that then. And so it was pretty crazy to put it together, especially with all these people that I never met in person. And I had to have everybody send me money, to secure their spots. It was kind of a crazy thing, but that was one thing that just showed me how awesome the carnivore community is. I had people send me money right away, and it was just awesome seeing us all come together like that. And, looking back at that group picture is just such an awesome time that, I just want to keep making it better and better every year. Now I feel like I have to put the meetups together for KetoCon, just because it was just so awesome last year, and I absolutely loved it. And I just want more people to join in on that.
Yeah, so that's awesome, Yecca, and I'll definitely provide links to all of your stuff in the show notes, MeatRx, and your accounts at carnivorecast.com. I was very sad to miss KetoCon last year, was planning my wedding, but I will definitely be there this year speaking, podcasting, and we'll definitely be at the meetup. Super excited to meet you there, meet others there, and happy to help in any way I can too. But thanks so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it. It's been great chatting with you, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks again.
If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on Carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Carnivore Cast. If you enjoyed this episode, please review on iTunes. It really helps us out, and share it with a friend. What questions would you like answered, or who would you like to hear from in the carnivore research community? You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at CarnivoreCast, or go to carnivorecast.com. You can also email me at info@carnivorecast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it carnivore.